Welcome to this episode of the Sports Detective Podcast Show. My name is James Williams, and today the Iowa Hawkeyes offense still stinks. What are we talking about? Well, Saturday, the Iowa Hawkeyes had a open scrimmage, and the offense still looks bad, and notably the quarterback coming off of an ACL tear, Cade McNamara, also did not look that good and struggled most of the day. I'll go ahead and read you guys this little snippet from Hawks Central. The Iowa football team is desperate for a better offense this year, and quarterback Cade McNamara is perhaps the most important factor as the Hawkeyes look for improvement. Saturday's Kids Day scrimmage at Kinnick Stadium was not a positive development for Iowa's QB1. McNamara's unofficial statistics against Iowa's defense: 8 completions, 24 attempts, 20 yards, and an interception. The first big play of the day was Hawkeye defensive back Quinn Schultz intercepting a McNamara pass and taking it for a pick six. This is from Warren Sharp. He said that just doing a little bit, he's a kind of like a betting statistical guy, if you don't know who that is. Iowa's QB1 versus own defense, holy hell, 24 attempts, 20 passing yards, 8 completions, 0.8 yards per attempt, 33% completion percentage, and 1 pick six. So why are we talking about this? You could look at this one way, and you could just say, hey, it's a scrimmage. We shouldn't read that much into it. And I tend to agree. I'm not necessarily a scrimmage vulture where we should dissect every single detail about a scrimmage and act like that is what is going to happen when the football season starts. But this is going back to what I said all along about Iowa. Brian Ferentz was not the problem. Now, is Brian Ferentz a good offensive coordinator? No. God, no. But there's a reason that Kirk left him in and made him, inadvertently, I don't think Kirk was trying to do this, but made him like a national laughingstock because he thought the way that they were running their offense, the way that Iowa had, was running plays, calling plays, their offensive philosophy as a whole, they thought it was the right solution because, in my opinion, now, if you listen to different kind of Iowa outlets, apparently they kind of let Brian do his own thing on offense. I don't believe that for a second, but I believe that the Iowa Hawkeyes as a whole, the fish rots from the head down. And who is the head? That is Kirk Ferentz. So I said this when Tim Lester got hired. I don't think the Iowa offense is going to be that much different than it was under Brian Ferentz. And Tim Lester, hey, you can look at his Western Michigan stuff and you can be like, oh, some of that stuff's impressive. Look at some of these offensive numbers. But guys, it took them like 2.5 months to hire Tim Lester. What did that mean? That the Iowa Hawkeyes were just being very thorough in their offensive coaching search and, just trying to find the right guy? No, if you follow college football at all and follow how other teams, when they fire a coordinator, go and do their search, they do that shit really fast. They do it very, very fast. They find a replacement incredibly fast because they need to worry about recruiting and keeping recruits and even attracting new recruits. So the fact it took them like 2.5 months, because they knew that they didn't hire Tim Lester till like January 31st or whatever, or like the end of January. And Brian Ferentz, we knew he was gone like mid-November. So I'm not that impressed if Tim Lester, a guy that was just, if he wasn't getting hired by the Iowa Hawkeyes, was just going to be sitting on his couch this fall. I'm not that impressed of this guy as an offensive coordinator. And if you're just looking at the Iowa Hawkeyes and projecting this offense, you have Cade McNamara coming off of a torn ACL. That's tough. That is very, very tough to come off of a torn ACL. I know the ACL recovery is a lot, more people are successful coming off of that after a year, but a lot of players necessarily, it's still, for a lot of players, it's the year after the year that they come back and they become back the player that they were before the injury. And I wasn't necessarily a big Cade McNamara fan before then. You look at the running back position, you got Williams there. He seems like a nice player. Tight ends, Lockley, Ostringa, those guys are solid. But then you just look at the rest of the offense here, the wide receiver position is still incredibly bleak. You guys got Caleb Brown, who caught like 22 passes last year, Seth Anderson, who caught 11, and then a bunch of guys that have never played Division I or Big Ten football before. The offensive line is average at best, above average, slightly above average at best. And I just think if you're looking at this Iowa offense, you're going to have the similar results that you were last year. There's not a lot of positivity. There's not that many things to be positive about this Iowa offense. And even though maybe you're an Iowa fan, you're like, hey, the running game looked a little better than we expected, and the offensive line looks solid. Well, when you're playing teams that are going to be game planning specifically against you, if they know you guys have a solid offensive line, can run the ball solidly, they're going to game plan against that, and they're going to be like, all right, Cade McNamara, with your torn ACL or recovered ACL, beat us through the air. Beat us throwing to your wide receivers. We're going to load the box, and we're going to make sure that you guys can't run the ball on us. If you guys are going to beat us with your offense, you're going to have to beat us through the air. So, again, this is the thing I said all along. The Iowa offense is not going to get better right away after firing Brian Ferentz. And it might not, with Kirk Ferentz as head coach, it might not get better for a while, because now Iowa has the reputation of, hey, it's a bad offense. Do not go there. Do not go there. High school recruits do not go there. That's negative recruiting that other schools are doing against Iowa. Do not go there because you're not going to put up that much good stats. Look at all these wide receivers that transferred out of Iowa and then were amazing at other schools, notably Purdue. Ask Iowa fans if you don't know what I'm talking about with some of those guys. So that's the bad news with Iowa. I think you're going to have to wait for Kirk Ferentz to either leave for this offense to get better. Now, maybe that's me being a little bit pessimistic. But I guess the good or bad news for Iowa fans is let's look at their schedule coming up this year. The Big Ten loves you guys. The Big Ten loves Iowa Hawkeyes, because it seems like every year you look at their schedule and you're like, oh, this is pretty favorable for the Hawkeyes. Now, part of that was because they're playing in the Big Ten West, which is a weaker division, and just some years you're going to avoid some of the big powerhouses in the Big Ten East. But even without divisions, this is the Iowa Hawkeyes football schedule this year. Out of conference, they have Illinois State, Iowa State, Troy, all at home. Okay, you should be favored in all those games. Travel to Minnesota. You guys should be favored in that game. I know Minnesota, tough team, tough place to play, but you guys should still be favored in that game. I still think Minnesota's on a little bit of a rebuild this year. Then you have a bye week before you play at Ohio State. Probably not going to do well in that game. Then Washington at home. Team with a new head coach, lost a bunch of NFL talent, and the good talent that they had went with Kalen DeBoer from Seattle all the way to Tuscaloosa. So I think that's a rebuilding team this year. You should win that game, or at least be favored. At Michigan State, another team that was putrid last year, and they're going through a rebuild. Northwestern, I know Coach Braun over there, had a good first year, but still at home, should be able to win that game homecoming. Wisconsin at home. Wisconsin, year 2, Luke Fickell. A little bit of a tougher matchup than maybe some of the previous years. But you get them at home, you should probably be favored in that game. At UCLA, another team, first-year head coach, doing a rebuild. I like Iowa in that game. At Maryland, Loxley's got a solid squad over there, but you guys should be able to handle them. And then you got Nebraska at home to finish off the season. They should be favored in at least 10 of these games. 11, 9 at the worst. So here's the thing. This offense is probably still not going to be that good, but Iowa is still going to stumble in and win like 10 games and potentially make the playoff. And again, I guess it's, the Hawkeye fans, I feel, in a way, I feel sorry for them, because you guys get to have these teams that there's so many other schools around the country that would love to have 9, 10-win seasons. But it's like with Iowa, it's like at what cost? It's like, hey, you get to get these 9, 10-win teams, but your offense is going to look absolutely abhorrent for the entire year. And then when you actually play like a legit top 5 team, you are going to get steamrolled, and your offense is going to struggle to get the ball past midfield. So there you have it, guys. I am not that optimistic about the Iowa offense, but it's the same. It's the same play. It's the same play. You can watch. I watched Hamilton, the musical. Saw it live. Lin-Manuel Miranda was not Hamilton, but it was still the same play. And just because Tim Lester is the offensive coordinator instead of Brian Ferentz this year, I think it's still going to be the same play for Iowa. The offense isn't going to look good. The defense and special teams are going to be stellar as always, and they're going to win 9 or 10 games. So There you have it, guys. That's going to do it for this episode here today. If you like this video, or even if you're an Iowa fan, didn't like this video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't, that is the best way to help this show grow, and it costs you absolutely $0. If you like this show, feel free to check out the rest of the Sports Detective podcast channel page, and you might find some other content that you enjoy. So thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you next time.